Hello to all my booty seekers and cheek chasers. This is the Carpe Natem Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Dello Hoya-Reynoso, and I am so grateful you are listening to this episode. If you're new here, you should know that I believe that my purpose is to uplift, inspire, and educate others to communicate masterfully so that they can better understand the world around them and themselves. I've spent years in the personal development and transformational technology space, and I want to share with you the wisdom that was passed down to me from giants in the industry. So if you're on a journey of self-mastery, just like me, looking to make dreams a reality and willing to be a leader for your family and community, then join me in seizing the butt cheeks of life and giving them a big ol' squeeze. Let's jump into the show. Welcome back to another episode, everyone. I am so excited for our guests. I know I'm excited for every guest that I have on here, but I really am because I have a gem with me here in the studio. I have Maggi Mayfield, who is a wonderful and amazingly talented voice actor. She's a singer. She's part of the group The Swinging Jills. She just gifted me an awesome album called Wake Up Maggie, which I'm super excited to listen to because I haven't gotten a CD in forever. So I'm so excited to listen to her. Not only is it music, but it's also comedy music. And she's going to tell us a little bit about that. But professional funny person, Maggi Mayfield, welcome to the show.
Hi, this is amazing. Thank you so much for having me. You made French press coffee for me.
Of course. I make French press for everyone. I want everyone to have a good cup of coffee.
I am impressed. I feel like I have under-gifted my return to you.
You are the first person to gift me a physical something. So this is a true gift. Tell me a little bit about Wake Up Maggie. How did you come up with an inspiration to write joke songs, comedy material? I know I've heard you sing. I've heard you do music, and I know that you have like an amazing talent on the guitar, piano, and singing.
Yeah, thank you.
But then you combine that with like creativity to do something comedic as well, which I love.
Yeah.
What inspired this?
Comedy is my heart. That's where my heart and soul is. And I wound up getting a manager last year, and she was like, I can't put you on the road until you have merch. And I was like, oh, well, what else am I going to do? I write songs. They should be on a CD. So I produced all this myself. I recorded it all myself in my own studio. And this is just a couple years worth of stuff that I've written, parody songs of my own original material, put it on an album. And I was like, look what I did. I'm ready. Put me on the road, and that's how that came to be. And
I can't believe a requirement to be on the road was merch. They're like, I refuse to put you on until you have it.
Yeah. Well, it was the smartest thing that she could have done, because some of these gigs that you're going to get are not as high paying as you think they are. Mm-hmm. But to be able to make gas money, food money to get to the next town, you've got to be able to sell yourself. And that's what stand-up is. I mean, that's what any performer is.
It really is.
It's a business. You got to be able to sell yourself.
It's such a struggle to get to the next city, especially when you're not, somebody like Joe Coy, Joe Rogan, or if you're a musician, anybody like, Dua Lipa right now is saying she had a phenomenal year. She was the number 2 streamed album on Spotify.
Amazing.
Good for her.
Yeah.
What about all the people who are not that, right? The ones who have to DIY it to the next town.
Yeah.
What was tour like for you?
Tour is fun. It's lonely, but it's so good. It's like the best therapy I think you could ask for, in the sense that like you're by yourself, you have nothing else to do. You have to drive. Like you just have to, you're by yourself. That's it. And, I set out with an intention every time. So I think the last time that I went out, I was like, I need to redefine what success looks like. And so I spent a good 6 days on the road hitting all these cities, and you just think it's just like you meditate on it and you process it and you're like, what is that? Because you can't, I don't know. I'm a big believer in the universe. Some people call it God, Jesus, whatever you want to say. I pray to the universe. And so, you have to get very specific when you ask for something. You want to manifest something, right? Like you're not just going to go into a sandwich shop and be like, I'll have a sandwich. Well, what do you want?
Exactly.
Wheat, white, turkey, roast beef. What do you want? Right? So you're like, universe, I want money. Well, here's a nickel. Well, that's not what I wanted. Well, you got to be specific,
Exactly.
And what that looks like. And so for me, I had to really sit down and focus on like, well, what is success? How am I going to know if I'm successful?
Sure.
What are those things?
How do you define it? Because I know it's such a ambiguous term, success. Because for some people that could be the idealistic $1 million mansion homes and stuff like that. But for some people, it's just be able to live off of their profession and doing what they love.
Yeah.
And that could be, $30,000, $40,000 a year. But what's your definition of success? Like, how do you define it?
Yeah. For me, the next step is I want to have a special, like a taped special on a streaming platform. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I will. And then after that, I will buy a home using the creative money that I've made. I will buy a house here in Austin and I will sustain that.
Yeah, speak it into existence.
Yeah. And you have to say it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I could be like, yeah, I'm going to make $100,000. That's fine.
Sure.
But what does that mean? Right? Like money is such a abstract concept. And so.
Plus the universe is funny in a way where if you ask for $100,000, it'll give you $99,000 worth of problems, so that like you only net 1,000, but you made the 100. So it's funny how like you're right about being real specific and being real intentional with what you desire.
Yeah.
There's actually an exercise that my godbrother told me about where he writes down his goals every day. And he reads them first thing when he wakes up, adds to his list, and then he reads them before he goes to bed. And he's really adamant about it. And he writes it in a way where it says, I am grateful now that I have. And he says it like in a very present tense.
Yes.
So it's like, I am grateful now that I have a home that I purchased with my specials funds.
Yes.
So it's very, very cool that you do that too.
Yeah.
Or in a way, like you speak such intentionally.
Yeah, the brain doesn't know what's present, future, and past. Like it doesn't know. So if you speak like, yeah, I own a home, it's amazing. It's incredible.
I love how specific you can get with it. What was there, it sounds like you have a couple of dreams that you've already kind of checked off your list. Any of them that have been really impactful?
Honestly, playing music in front of people, it's so interesting. I went back and read an old journal entry from when I was like 15, when I was first gifted a guitar.
Interesting.
And it said something to the effect of like, I will play my music in front of people. And I was like, oh, I did that. But it took me 15, 20 years to get comfortable to play in front of people.
Right.
No one has ever heard me play the guitar on stage until I was in my mid-30s.
Right.
It took me a long time to be able to do that.
But now that you were able to do that, like it seems like the joy that's just radiating from you, it seems like it's really your purpose.
Yeah.
It feels like
wow, what a nice thing to say.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, when you talk about like drinking coffee, when you talk about other things, you can tell how excited someone is for something, but just by how much they perk up.
Yeah.
And just talking about being in front of people, it seems like it really calls to you. What about performing in front of people is like, what draws you to it?
I love, life's hard. It's so, can I say that?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's so fucked up. It's so hard.
It's fun.
And out of like no fault of our own, just existing, it's hard. It's expensive.
It's very expensive to live.
It's just hard to exist. And you add other people, that makes you add pets to them. It's complicated. It gets weird. And then feelings on top of that, like get the hell out of here. It's hard. And so I like to be able to help people forget, you know, I think you hear it all the time, like kind people come from a lot of trauma, right? And so the kindest souls that you'll meet have been through some real sticky mud. You know, they've been through it.
I've also been told like hurt people. And that's another big thing. So like when somebody is coming at you in a negative way, it's not really a projection of you. It's really a reflection of them.
100%. Yeah. But I think it's important to.
Is that why you're so sweet? Because you've been through so much and then you just spread like joy and positivity to others?
Yeah. There's no reason. I would never want anyone to feel as sad. You know, so even in my darkest time, I would never want anyone else to have to experience that. And so it's like you find, you know, from comedy comes from a very dark, sad place.
Yeah.
Most comedians are not. not happy, the happiest of folks. You know what I mean?
Which is incredibly interesting and something that I kind of battle with because I spend so much time rewiring my insanely chaotic brain that loves going into negative by default.
Yeah.
So I always am putting out something positive, something loving. Not always. Let me take that back because I am human.
Yeah.
And there are times where I get cut off and I'm just like, fuck, like immediately. But even little shifts in the things that I do, like I used to flip people off, of course, and call them cunts. But my wife said it'd be better if you gave them a thumbs up and said, good job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, it's sarcastic. And of course, I'm mocking them. But to pass them by with a big old smile and a thumbs up, like, good job.
Yeah.
I think that impacts them more. But it's like, what am I putting out into the world?
And right. And also, we live in Texas and you never know who has a gun. So,
oh, yeah, that
I just
too.
say,
yeah, you get shot over a thumbs up. But the reason I put so much out there, so much positive, is because I was in a state of negative for so long.
Yeah.
Now that I'm in the state of positive, where I try to maintain myself in it, it's hard sometimes to draw inspiration from, because I used to write lyrics and write music when I was at my angriest and at my saddest. I don't get that angry anymore. I also don't get that sad anymore.
But it doesn't mean you don't have the capacity to understand it.
And that's something that I'm struggling with, is just to really go into that space and into that feeling to truly feel it. Because I've definitely, through therapy, have realized that I am very avoidant and disassociative, because feeling those feelings is worse than just kind of like ignoring them until they bubble up and explode. Then I'll have that rupture, and then it's just like the cup gets emptied, but that's not healthy.
Well, you know.
There's worse things, but there's also better things.
Yeah. I think you'll find it. You'll find it.
I think so.
Yeah.
And this is why I like doing the podcast, and I like talking with people who have similar experiences. Do you remember the time where you did start performing and you started getting out of your own way? Do you remember the time where you did it and you felt like, I got this? Like, what was your aha moment to realize that you could do the thing that you love doing, which is performing?
Ooh. When I realized, like, oh, I got this.
Did you ever have that moment on stage? Or because you do it, and you do it now so often, it's now become routine. But there has to be a moment where you were on stage and like, I get it.
I think it happens every time I get on stage, because, and I think it has to, because I do get so worked up and nervous, like the butterflies come, because I care so much, and I just want it to go well. And I know if I'm not nervous before a show, it's not going to be a good set. And it's consistently true. So yeah, I think every time I get on stage, and honestly, when I first started here in Austin 1.5 years ago, I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to start at the bottom. Like, everyone's going to be so much better than me. I still do that. I still walk into a room like, everyone's more talented than me, you know, like, I just don't want to be the worst one on the lineup. Like,
it sounds also like you're very supportive of other comedians and other performers.
Yeah, you have to be.
A lot of people don't have that mindset. And I love the fact that I'm finding more people that do. Like, you're proving my current paradigm wrong, because I come across people who have this mindset of like, if I clap for you, there will be less claps for me.
What?
Constantly.
That's bananas.
Isn't it?
I say all the time, like, there's room for everyone. And also, you have to remember, it's not about you. It's about the audience and their experience. You know what I mean? The producer has worked really hard to put together a lineup, hopefully, that makes sense. Right? You're not going to put a shock jock and along with like the sweet little cute, you know what I mean? Like the lineup is going to make sense. There's reasons, there are themes, right? And producing is hard. It's really hard. Difficult. And it's about the audience and their experience. They've paid money either in cash or in time investing in showing up to enjoy this experience, this shared experience. Yeah, it's not about you. It's about the audience.
So it sounds like, from what you're saying, to stay on it, you have to stay nervous and also not make it about you. When you're performing, when you're doing it, you're at the service of the people in front of you.
I feel like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's such a great way of thinking.
Okay.
I
don't know.
No, it is, because I feel like when there is a point where, and this is why I love comedy, because there's some times where I do a show and I'll do really, really well. And then my ego inflates to the size of a room. I'm the best, right?
You are.
And then I go 2 days later and do another show and I bomb and I get no laughs, right?
Yeah.
I take that and I'm just like, I need to work better. I need to work. I need to do better.
Yeah.
But I can understand now, like, where the issue is. Where at the first show where I did really good, my whole goal was to just try to make somebody laugh, do my best to get my jokes out there.
Yeah.
In the second one, I went up there feeling like I'm the fucking king. So this was just an ego trip for me, and I did bad, and I've never analyzed it like that.
Yeah.
So that's a really good insight for me. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for that. Besides comedy, and you also do voice acting.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you got into it?
Voice acting came because I worked in radio broadcasting for a very long time. I started very, very young. I was 19 and kind of chased that dream around. And so I never got to be around my family. I missed my nieces being born. I missed a lot of stuff because I was chasing this dream. I loved it. I was always the new person in a new town, like trying to figure it out and acclimate myself and make new friends. But I was also punching the clock, and I was starting to feel guilty asking for time off because there was this fear of missing out on money, on meeting new people, on these activities that were happening, all to go like vacation, which was never a vacation. It was always to go visit my family. So being a slave to that like corporate gig, I needed to figure out a way to work for myself. How can I punch my own clock? How can I set my own schedule? How can I take control over my own finances, really? And being in radio, I had all the things set up, like the microphones, all the board, everything that I ever needed was right there. I got offered a few gigs, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is a really great way to make some extra money. And just by trial and error, doing a lot of Googling and making it work, after about 3.5 years of trying to figure it out, I was able to quit all my jobs. This was like right before the pandemic, quit all of my jobs and work for myself, work from home. And that was it. It was out of a necessity to stop asking for time off.
Right.
Because I was tired of asking, like, hey, can I go visit my family? That's ridiculous. I don't want to spend my time visiting my family.
Right.
I want to spend my vacations doing cool shit. And that was why I started doing voice acting. That was it.
That's amazingly entrepreneurial. You took a gift that you really spent years honing and crafting, and then applied it to a way so that you can have true freedom, which is the ability to see your family or take the day off whenever you want.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Do you have any tips for anybody who's trying to do something like this? Because it is very, very difficult to start a new project, but it's also difficult to manage oneself. And it's something that I struggle with. So how do you maintain... It sounds like you schedule yourself in the same way that you would clock in on the job, but you have nobody behind you to like push you or make you do it. So this is all coming in from like self, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on somebody who wants to kind of go down the same rabbit hole or same route?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with stand-up comedy. I think we were talking about that beforehand. You treat it like a job, and no one's coming to rescue. No one's going to tell you what to do. But like comedy, there is room for everyone. There's only one you. There's only one Nate. There's only one Maggie. There's only one. And the way that you interpret a script or a book or your life experience is different than anyone else. So there is room for everyone.
I love it.
Yeah. And you just, I don't know. You either want it or you don't. You know what I mean? And exactly. I can't make you want it. You know what I mean? So like for me, my reason for doing this is so that like, yeah, I can leave at noon, go pick up my nieces from school and hang out and be the cool Auntie Maggie, come back, finish whatever project I was working on, and then go hit my shows at night, you know, because my priorities are to be around my family.
Right.
That's my priority.
That's so sweet.
But you gotta pay the bills too. So it was just a matter of figuring out how to balance what is important to you. And I don't think we take the time to do that. We just show up to work, we do what we're supposed to be doing, we pay the bills, and then that's it. But it's like, you have to think about your life. Like, work is not your whole life. It shouldn't be your whole life. What's important to you, and that will help motivate you to do whatever it is.
Right. Because it feels like nowadays doing the whole going to work, kind of just doing the routine of things, you go into autopilot, and that's how you lose years of your life.
Right.
Where you just kind of wake up one day and you look back and you're like, what have I accomplished? What have I done?
Yeah.
And it was basically drone until you get to the current day.
Yeah.
And you don't really figure out like why we're even doing these things. Why are we working so hard? Mm-hmm. I've had the pleasure of being able to kind of make some of these realizations on like psychedelics. So,
I've heard that too. Yeah.
Where it really establishes an idea. And if you don't want to go down the psychedelic rabbit hole, which I recommend for those who are brave enough and within the confines of local laws and safety, of course. But if you don't want to do that, think about this. Imagine you're going to die tomorrow. And I know that's morbid, but think about if you were to die tomorrow, what would you be sad that you wouldn't be able to do anymore? Like, what is the most upsetting thing to you to lose? Mm-hmm. Whatever that is, you need to be doing more of that. Mm-hmm. So if you think that you're going to die tomorrow and you'd be sad because you'd no longer be able to spend time with your mom watching movies with her, you need to make sure that in your schedule, you are doing more of that, because
100%.
None of the times does somebody think like, oh, I wish I would have spent more time at work, or, oh, I really wish I would have like spent more time, getting money. No, it's always spending time with family, spending time with loved ones, working on passions, working on projects, doing things that really inspire you compared to the things that you do just to get by. Mm-hmm. And I guess with this busy world, it's so easy to get caught up in like the minutia of things. Mm-hmm. So to have an idea of like what is the most important for you, the why behind why we do things. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I think the pandemic was really important for a lot of people.
It broke a lot of people.
To learn that, though, mm-hmm. when all of a sudden you're like, I've got nothing. So many people lost their job. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, how do you fill the time? Now what do you do? How do you pull your own bootstraps up? How do you pull yourself up? How do you do that?
What about all the people who met their significant other for the first time?
Yeah.
Because they were forced to spend more than dinner and movie night together.
Exactly.
And, all the like my relationship started in the pandemic. So I felt like it made us stronger. But a lot of people went through the pandemic and got worse because they were like, oh, why am I even with this person?
Exactly.
Because now that, the whole deck of cards or the house of cards is collapsed. Yeah. What's left? Mm-hmm. It's just like your relationships with your family, your relationships with your close friends and loved ones. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Unless you have some other side project that you really like put a lot of effort into, it feels like as people, we don't have much to hold on to or to really push us forward.
Yeah. Except each other.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I think it's best to surround yourself with people who encourage instead of like bring you down. Yeah. In your current circle of people, like how did you find like a really good support system for what you do?
I got lucky.
Yeah?
Just really lucky.
You don't think it's like your amazingness and positivity and the way you radiate that like attracted people that also are good for you?
That's possible. But I've also attracted some people that are really not great for me.
Oh, those are fun stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So for your current support system around you, do you notice any qualities that someone should look for when creating like a support system? Like, do you notice any qualities that you specifically admire in others that you gravitate towards?
Yeah. Listen, someone who is doing more than you will never criticize you.
Ooh.
It's the people that aren't doing as much as you that have something negative to say. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, that's a huge perception. Yeah.
And the people that are, especially in comedy, in any performing genre, you kind of just keep your head down. You take little baby steps, and there are going to be setbacks and things are going to get hard, and it's going to be like, why am I doing this? But you just try, right? Like I just tried making this album. I'm sure in 10 years I'm going to be like, oof, I wish I could redo that, but I think it was important for me to learn how to put something like that together. There was a lot of thought behind like the order of the songs, what songs I put on there, the album art, all that stuff. It was a lot. But no one that is working as hard or harder than me was criticizing. No one had anything bad to say about it. They were like, whoa, it's really cool that you did that.
Right.
You know, like I figured out a lot about like distribution and YouTube, a lot of things I had to learn. But people who were not doing as much as me were like, oh, why would you choose those colors? Oh, that font doesn't look as good. It's like nitpicking very weird,
small details,
little things that don't matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't have time for that.
No, you're right. Because the people who are doing things understand the time and effort that it takes to put something that together.
We're all learning.
We are all learning. And some of us have better resources than others. But when it comes to like the whole DIY-ness, like if I see anybody, even if I don't like what that person puts out, like let's just say it's just weird electro music, right? The fact that you're going and doing it and like putting something together and putting your name out there and making content and like, I'm just like, hell yeah, keep doing that. Like find an audience, build it. I'm not your audience, but I'm also going to, shout you out like a cheerleader, like it's
100%. Yeah. Like one of my very good friends, she just wrote a book in the pandemic and I'm just blown away. I read it and I was like, Kim, I can't believe that you made a book. Like what?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. The cover art, like how she organized it. I was just like, girl, I can't do that.
Right.
I mean, I might, but like you're the first person that I would go ask if I ever get to that point where I'm like, yeah, I think it's time to do a book. You know what I mean? She did it. She went through the steps, the distribution, the getting it published, the getting it printed. It's like, it's a whole world I don't understand, but one of my favorite comedians. And I'm just like, yes, Gwen, go.
Which is awesome. Again, you're somebody who's doing so many projects and doing so many cool things. You had no time to criticize. You saw somebody else putting out a hustle and you were just like, amazing. Heck yes.
Yeah.
So you need more people like that in your life. Those who are doing things and who are doing things that like impress you and amaze you. I feel like that's also too, because sometimes like Jimmy Clifford, who was on the last episode.
Amazing. Yeah.
From the way he spoke about how he does comedy and the way he does, he treats it like a job and he treats it with such like intensity.
Yeah.
It inspired me to start writing more.
I love that.
Yeah. And you have inspired me to do a couple of things. Like I'm taking a little bit of mental notes and I'm going to just be like, I'm going to start applying this in life.
Oh, I love that.
I love it too. Thank you for being a guest.
No, thank you for having me. This is great.
In the same vein of inspiration, let's talk about something what inspired you to be a performer, to do music, to do like radio? Like, was there something specifically that kind of pushed you towards it, or anything that or anybody that drew you towards where you were like, I want to be like that?
This is such an interesting, complicated question. I can remember being young, very young, like kindergarten, performing in plays. And I think I'm such a people pleaser. Grew up very codependent, and without getting like too much into detail, but my mom, we have a great relationship now, but growing up, definitely some alcohol issues, some narcissism, and my dad is a codependent and was non-existent. Anyway, so there was I was definitely the people pleaser of the family,
right?
The one that tried to keep everyone together. I'm like, oh, if I can just do a little tap dance and do a little thing, do a jig, right? And so to be able to be that front person for the rest of the family that was like, what's going on with you? I got a scholarship to go to New York City and I was going to be on Broadway. That was a whole big thing. 9/11 happened and it kind of cut that short.
Whoa.
And so I came back home and wound up finding this radio broadcasting school. And I was like, that's like acting, but no one sees you. Turns out I was just really, really good at it. And within 3 months, I was working for a station doing a part-time gig. Before I graduated, I had a full-time gig and I was off. I was running. And for the first, it took me a long time to realize, like, I don't have to pretend to be anybody else to be interesting or funny or perform, right? And so I think going from radio into comedy, it was kind of a natural progression. I just got more time to say things that I wanted to say without the FCC breathing down my neck, like, you're not supposed to say bad words. Yeah, and so I still do a lot of acting, but what I realize is that these parts, these incredible, when people win an Academy Award, it's not because they are reaching and they're doing something that's so incredibly different from who they are. That is an extension of that person, right? So like Meryl Streep, all those characters she plays, those are little pieces of her that she's exaggerating and like bringing out. That's all that acting is like finding who you are and making it bigger for the screen or the stage.
Thank you for being vulnerable and telling us like a little bit about your history. I really think it's amazing that you as a kid understood at a very young age that like if I could be the performer and make everyone laugh, maybe the problems around me would lessen. And it's very interesting to see that, because I noticed that like a lot of comedians and a lot of people who've been through stuff end up being kind of like class clowns or like center of attentions, because what they're trying to do, and you know, I'm not projecting or anything like that or assuming, it's because I'm now seeing a lot of this in myself where I was the class clown and for a long time my emotional response and defense mechanism was laughter.
Yeah.
So if I can make everybody laugh and we're always joking and we're always smiling, then it's easy to not see all the bad things that are happening.
Yeah.
It's also, again, it aligns with like the dissociativeness and the avoidance behaviors.
Yeah.
But it helped develop for me like a sense of comedy and a sense of humor, because I wanted to make other people laugh. Like that was always my intention. But the intention was to make to kind of like hide the bad stuff.
Yeah.
You were able to really hone in on your talents. And something that was supposed to happen, or quote unquote supposed to happen, ended up leading you down a different road where you excelled and you did, you know, you grew from that. You were still able to do it. Who would have known the different life that you would have lived if you would have went to New York?
I mean, I did go.
Right.
Yeah. But when 9/11 happened, I was like, I don't know who I am. I'm so self-conscious about everything and every choice. But at 18, who isn't?
Exactly. We're still all finding ourselves, and even into our later adult years, we still don't really know who we are. Some people have been alive for 40 years, but have only lived 5 because they discovered what they wanted at 35, you know?
Yeah.
And there's people right now who are listening who are still not living. They're just existing. And that's different than actually like living.
Yeah.
You know?
I hope that day changes for you.
Me too.
If that's you.
Me too. We're here to support. Because you're drawing inspiration from so many different places, are there any quotes or lines from a song that you recall that you live by, or that you always kind of go to whenever you're feeling a certain way?
Yes. My grandfather always used to say, consider a day wasted when you don't learn anything new. And he was a Mensa mind. You know what I mean? One of those like
Super geniuses.
And so over the years, it keeps changing what that means. But I went to a seminar for radio very early on in my career. And someone that I looked up to very much was like, creativity. You go to the grocery store and you pick out the same things that you do. You have the normal route that you take in the grocery store. You pick out the same ingredients. You're going to make the same dishes. But if you go and you pick out a couple new things, or you try a couple new things, suddenly your flavor palette's going to expand. It is the same thing with creativity. It's the same thing with creativity. You try something new, you say yes, and you learn something new, and suddenly you've unlocked something in your brain where you can like do a whole new thing. You can make an album. You can try a new bit on stage. You can do more. You've just opened your eyes to more shit, right? So like, I don't know if you've ever heard a graduate student working on their PhD or their master's degree. They're like, I realize that the more I know, the less I know. The more I learn, the less I know, which is so true. So if you just keep saying yes and stay curious, you have unlimited creative potential. Unlimited.
I also like how your grandfather puts it, you can make a day just by doing that one little thing. So if you spend like all day in bed and you just feel absolutely crappy about yourself, if you actually put in 5-10 minutes to learn something new, to actually discover something, just by doing that, you've already crossed off on your list. Like you accomplished something today. And I think especially when it comes to people nowadays, it's so hard to find gratitude in tiny little things. So this adds to that, where you're finding something so tiny, so easy to accomplish. can create such tremendous results if you just keep at it. Stay curious.
Stay curious.
And how I love the analogy that you used with the supermarket, because by increasing your palette, you now have a plethora of new combinations, and it just expands and expands and expands.
Right? Because, I mean, in music, you hear it all the time. It's like, who's your influence? Well, everyone's influences are a little different, but we're all kind of taking pieces from other art that we've seen and heard and interpreting it in our way and regurgitating it as the Maggi Mayfield show,
Right.
Which is all just like,
But that's the beauty of it, because you bring to like the buffet of life a special plate that it's not just a regurgitation. Maybe it is inspired by something else, but because you made it the way that you made it, it is now that unique individual plate.
Yeah. And you know what else? Okay, now that we're talking about this too, someone else said something like, just because it's been done before doesn't mean it's been done the best way or the only way. It hasn't been done by you, Nate. So we don't know, like, just because it's been done, just because books have been written, just because comedians have gotten on stage, it hasn't been done by you.
Right.
So do it your way.
That's such a beautiful message.
Yeah.
I've from what I've gathered from this conversation, it seems like a lot of growth has happened for you in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Especially because of the change in jobs and like the amount of performing that you're doing, all these cool and amazing things.
Thanks.
Is there any habit that you picked up in the last couple of years that really has made a difference or a huge impact in your life?
Yes. The ability to say no, thank you.
Beautiful. Tell us more.
When I started figuring out how to prioritize myself, and honestly, it's yoga. I picked up this wonderful yoga habit, and I do it every day, every day, even if it's just 5 minutes. Like I have to. Even coming here, it was like, I have to do that for me before I'm able to service you. So to be able to say, no, thank you, not at this particular time, but I can later, so I can take care of myself first. That has helped me.
Prioritizing, because like you said, you're a people pleaser, so you tend to want to take on more than you have bandwidth for.
Yep.
And then I'm sure that everybody listening here knows that, like, yes, you want to say yes and to as much as you can, but you got to be smart about what you say yes and to.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's all balance, and you have to be able to say no, thank you tomorrow.
Right.
Or whatever. Because you can say yes, but you can also delay it. It doesn't, right? Like we're young. We're not old. You know what I mean? We're going to be here for a minute.
Yeah. And it's not a sprint. It's a very long marathon.
For sure.
To say no also doesn't mean that a door is closed, because just because you say no to something doesn't mean it actually means that you're saying yes to more of something else.
Yep.
So it's not a loss of energy. It's a transference of energy. And for those listening, like, if you feel overwhelmed, don't feel bad about saying no. The same way you shouldn't feel bad about asking for the time off. Because if you need that time off and you need to take care of yourself, you come before anything else. Because if you're at 100%, then you're able to take care of yourself at 100% and the people around you at 100%. Compared to, like, if you're only running at 50, then people are only getting half of you. You're only getting half of you. And we all know that the results are totally different when we're working at 100% capacity compared to running on empty.
Yeah. You're the one that has to go to bed with you. You're the one that has to like you, right? You have to like you.
Yeah.
No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to do this for you. It's your life. Like, take care of you. That's literally your only job in life, is to take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
That's all you have to do. That's it. That's all you have to do. And we make it complicated, but just show up for you. That's it. You get up, you get to be excited about your life. You get to be excited about your day. That's it.
I think that's such a beautiful place to end.
Yeah.
Maggi Mayfield, I appreciate you for being such a guest and bringing such huge insights. This has been a wonderful episode.
I'm so glad. Thank you for having me.
Let the people know where they can find you.
It's super easy. MaggiMayfield.com. MAGGI, Mayfield as it sounds.com.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a guest.
Thank you for being you and wonderful and human.
I appreciate that so much. This has been a treat for me.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Carpe Natem Podcast. If you love this episode, please consider leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Music or iTunes. It takes 30 seconds for you, but for us, it helps spread positivity to more people during these chaotic times. It helps build a community, and it makes me smile from ear to ear. Speaking of community, we have a Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Carpe Natem. Just answer the 3 questions to get access to some extra motivation and inspiration for your timeline. If you would like to support the podcast, screenshot this episode, share it to your story, and tag me on Instagram at CarpeNatem114. That's going to be my handle across all platforms, including TikTok, if you would like to give me a follow. If you haven't already, please rate us and subscribe on Spotify or anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. And lastly, you can find all episodes, linked to resources, and opportunities for coaching and mentoring from me at CarpeNatem114.com. I cannot thank you enough for spending part of your day with me. You are all rock stars taking the necessary steps to be your best self, willing to do whatever it takes, and ready to grab life by the butt cheeks. So until next time, this is Nate De La Hoya-Reynoso signing off.